Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are joined with our friend Ajoy Krishnamoorthy. Ajoy is the Executive Vice President of Products and Chief Strategy Officer at Acumatica, the leading cloud ERP provider. So Ajoy has a very deep background in technology, including almost a full decade at Microsoft, which at Microsoft, he launched his own award-winning app and is now coming up on a decade for the construction industry. Today, we'll be talking about the Internet of Things, or IoT, as it's called, and how it's impacting the construction industry, and also its relationship to machine learning and AI, and the best approach to investing into those important technologies. Hello, Ajoy. Thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Absolutely, Mike. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, and wonderful talking to your listeners at the Mobile Workforce Podcast. Looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, I am too. And we just both got back from your Acumatica Summit, which was a fantastic event, the best one we've ever been to. So thank you for putting on such a great opportunity for us to meet with our customers and prospects.
Absolutely. What a phenomenal show. And for all of us who've been pretty much in a remote setup for about 18 months, to be back in an in-person conference, this happened to be in Vegas, meeting with our customers and partners, it was just a phenomenal opportunity. And we had a great time.
Awesome. And I think we got, about 6 more months and we're going to be back there again, right?
That's right. Yeah, with the date being changed due to COVID, we're going back to our original schedule of hosting the event in the beginning of the year. So we'll be back in Vegas end of January.
Awesome. Well, that'll be great. Well, so to start the conversation today, just one of the things that I thought would be important to talk about. We both know that construction has a reputation as being a bit of a laggard in terms of technology adoption. What's your take on that, and what are you seeing in the field today?
Yeah, no, I mean, great question to start off. And I think, for some of us and many of you listeners and you, Mike, you've spent a lot of time in the construction space. And traditionally, yes, construction industry was viewed as a laggard in terms of technology adoption. But things have been changing, if you look at the recent past, both in terms of the software and the hardware side of things. And we saw the hardware innovation happening, quite early on, where organizations, like if you walk the conference, either it's the World of Concrete or ConExpo or the IBS show, a lot of these industry trade shows, I mean, you saw companies investing in new technology, whether it's robotic automation or capabilities in the tools themselves, to be able to track and better utilize them from a both effectiveness and efficiency. But then on the software side, yes, there was a bit of a delay, I guess, in terms of companies adopting newer modern technology. And that's one of the reasons actually we at Acumatica got into construction industry in the first place. Like when we started looking at the landscape, a lot of the back office software was very siloed. Innovation hasn't happened in the last, and technology upgrade hasn't happened in over a decade. And a lot of the systems were pretty closed and with little to no opportunity for multiple systems to interact. But then we also saw on the other end, customers were starting to demand and starting to use a lot of those utility software that are modern, cloud-based with mobile and so on, and clearly saw an opportunity for providing a cloud-based back office system that also works very closely with the front office solutions, in the field solution, if you will. And that's driven by a couple of things, right? I mean, one of the obvious ones is the new workforce, coming into the industry, and the new workforce are coming in. Obviously the moms and the dads, the aunt, uncle that started the construction company are now transitioning and handing over the ownership to the niece, the nephew, the son, the daughter. And these are the folks that grew up in the very technology. There's the grasp of what the technology means to them from a day-to-day standpoint. This is the generation that grew up with the Snapchats and the Facebook and all the social media, TikTok and whatnot. And this is the generation that also has the ability to take a picture of a check and it shows up in the bank, and then they show up to work and there's stack of invoices and somebody have to manually key it in, and they're like, oh my gosh, this sucks, excuse my language there, but that's the reaction for them. It's like, hey, how can I have that type of experience when I'm a consumer, and then completely go into a stone age when I come back into doing my job? So that's where I think there are obviously a lot of demands coming from this generation to say, hey, this got to change. And then the second piece is construction companies realizing technology is not a necessary evil. It's actually a competitive differentiator. We saw that obviously with the pandemic, a lot of the customers saw the value. And I mean, we work with a lot of our joint customers here, Mike. They appreciated the fact that they could have all the system up and running in the cloud with mobile access. And then one of the customers said it in a webinar we did back in April of last year. They did the transition without missing the beat, right? They're able to work in the office, and then within a week when the restrictions start putting in place, they could move and work remotely. So that aspect, I think, helps drive a lot of the construction companies across many industries, but particularly in construction as well, go into this cloud-based model.
Yeah, I love that. Love your answer, and you went into some depth on a few things, which I really appreciate because I that's the same thing we're seeing and hearing out there on the job sites, in the projects, in these construction offices. Adoption is becoming a very key differentiator, and again, like you said, it's a competitive edge that companies are gaining by adopting these newer technologies. So tell me, when we talk about the term IoT, what exactly is that, and why is that important for the workers in the field today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's few technology trends that are making significant impact into how the business are operating. One of them is obviously the IoT, Internet of Things, and then the other one is around machine learning and AI, and we'll talk about that in a second here. So, Internet of Things, right? In a nutshell, it's all about use of sensors, right? I mean, we're seeing sensors everywhere, and a lot of us as consumers, we've gotten into this home automation, whether it's using the ring camera to capture what's happening in a movement, to having automated garage door openers and so on, so the delivery guy can come in and just track what's going on, and that type of stuff, and drop the product or the shipment, if you will. So the automation from that standpoint, using the sensors, is happening everywhere. In construction, I think we're starting to see that in few different places. Obviously, tracking equipment is obviously a big one, right? And especially if you have lots of tools and big equipments, understanding where they are on any given point in time. Did somebody leave a jackhammer in the job site, right? How do I track it without having to send somebody back 20 miles to the job sites to check? Having that ability to track the product, and also more depth around utilization, right? These products are now becoming smarter and smarter, where you can put a chip on the on the product itself, and it's starting to track utilization, any early alert and warnings. If I've used a particular equipment for too long and it needs to go back into calibration sooner, those type of stuff is being automated. And in the longer term, what it means is that it ensures safety of the equipment and also of the operator, but also increases the life of the equipment. Last thing you want to do is have the equipment fail and then go back and fix it. Some of the stuff like this is also now coming into pre-built, right? I was talking to an analyst not too long ago from one of the large analyst firm, and she was talking about how the facilities management aspect is evolving from an sensor standpoint. We've all heard the stories about the boilers and the HVAC unit having sensor in them, and sending alerts, whether it's the Schneider Electric or Johnson Control. These guys have put in sensors that can tell you whether the certain thresholds are exceeded. If a temperature or the of the particular unit is more than a threshold, and that has happened more than once or twice or thrice, automatically send a notification to the maintenance team, so you can do some preventive maintenance before the system breaks down. Now, that whole aspect is now coming into play even during pre-build and design. Now the construction companies are starting to invest and take advantage of that as they're planning out the building, making sure there's enough data being captured, understanding of the different HVAC units. And that kind of leads all the way down to how you do the handoff, right? When a construction team completes a project and handing it over to the owner, They want all their data to be available, everything digitized and being there. I remember attending a conference not too long ago, maybe 3 4 years, and it was a construction technology conference. And one of the speaker, I forget who said this, but it's just kind of stuck on my head. He said, I can find more information about my 1992 Honda Civic than the building that I just took over about a month ago, because everything is in a file, everything is in people's head. I don't know what I'm getting, I don't know what the warranty is for the HVAC unit, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely quite a bit of digitization that's important, that's needed in the construction, and I think sensors are going to play a big role. On top of that, this whole sensor IoT, expanding it beyond that, there's also a safety aspect to it. I know you work in the time capture. I know a lot of innovations happen there with biometric and presence based, when the crew is in a job site and so on. There's also camera based tracking that's becoming popular. I saw one example recently, where in a job site you have a camera that's a static mounted camera that's capturing the workers moving around, and if somebody forgot their hard hat or took off the hard hat, it gives an immediate notification, so you can alert them and say, hey, careful, this job site, you need to have the hard hat on, because that's like being careful about the crew's health and safety. So there's lots of creative ways that can be applied, and that's kind of what I see as a trend.
I love that. So you mentioned safety and tool or equipment management. You talked about sensors and devices. What about productivity? Do you see things that are adding to companies' productivity because they're utilizing IoT?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, right, all of this means that you can do your job in an efficient manner, right? The point I talked about, the equipments giving you signals on where they are in terms of their strength and health, and also in the context of them, needing a calibration or needing a servicing. Imagine if you don't have that information and you have a breakdown on a particular equipment. It's the backhoe that you needed for an excavation project, and then that failed on the morning of the job. Now you're scrambling, right? That's impacting at the end of the day your crew's time and resources, how you're allocating timeline to that project. The project might get delayed. See, at the end of the day, a lot of this technology, even though in an isolation it looks like it's solving a specific problem, at the end of the day, it's all about like, hey, can I do my job better? Is it helping my team members be more productive? And is it helping me offer the best service I can to my customers? It has to accrue to that overall value. And I think technology like IoT and machine learning and AI, used in the right way, helps us be that much smarter about what's going on in our job site, in many industries for that matter. I can talk about similar examples that's happening in agriculture and manufacturing and so on. It's accruing to that customer value at the end of the day.
Well, and what I love, something that you said earlier, it also increases safety. So if we're building more efficiently, if we're being more productive, and we're doing it safer, that's a win-win-win, and certainly something that companies need to look at things more seriously.
Yeah, totally. One of the things that again, I can't disclose the name, but this is one of the large tool companies that we are working with. They have actually built in into the tool set the ability to track them. It's kind of like what you can do with this, the tags. You probably have seen them around. You can put the tags on your car key or in your TV remote to find, where you've placed. So similar technology, but that whole thing is embedded into the tools itself. So when you buy the tool from this vendor, it can automatically track on any given day where it is, including utilization and so on, right? And so we're working with them in terms of like bringing some of the data into Acumatica, for instance, where on a particular job, if you want to, track utilization of the tools and then associated cost, you could do some of that without having to manually go through a check-in and check-out and assignment and so on. So there's definitely some work that's going on that's going to continue to push the envelope on this particular area.
I love that. So tell me, what are companies doing now with machine learning and AI to really utilize those more?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those areas I think, things are a lot different now than even like, 3 years, 5 years, if you will, right? Machine learning traditionally, is not available to a lot of the smaller companies because, you needed significant power and so on, and also data to be able to analyze them and identify some patterns and start using them to do some prediction. Again, going back to the parallels in consumers, we all as consumers, we are using machine learning, whether we know it or not. When you go to Amazon and order a particular item and it says, hey, those who ordered this item also ordered these three items, that's machine learning right there, right? Understanding what the purchasing behavior and making recommendations. when you're watching a particular show on Netflix, it's recommending similar shows, or listening to music on Spotify, it's listening, suggesting few other tracks for you. Those are all driven by, machine learning capability. At the end of the day, the users don't know it, but they benefit from it. To me, that's the power of it, like on how we are thinking about utilizing those capability in construction, for that matter. Whether it's doing data analysis. I mean, you're working in this time tracking aspect of it. Imagine you can, predict what that project time is going to be on a particular, given week, month, or so on. People are using it, like I said, for analyzing the job site, for any type of safety, violations, and so on. There are a lot of core activities that happens in a construction workflow. But take an example, things like photo log, meeting minutes, right? And a lot of times what happens is you collect so much data, but it's hard to track, and find the information that you're looking for. You and I, we've got like tons of images on our phone. And now, phone systems have provided sophisticated search capability where I can look for, hey, show me a picture of me and Mike when we met at World of Concrete. Of course, you won't get that, to that level of specificity, but you can start looking at images based on some characteristics. You can say, hey, show me pictures of my family in the beach. So it can take me to pictures from a vacation. Of course, we haven't done vacations in the last 18 months, so it's more of a memory from pre-COVID, I guess. But imagine you can bring that same level of discoverability into commercial scenario, right? So in a photo log, in the daily field report, the project team is capturing all the data, bringing it into a system, and it's collecting information on a daily basis. How can I discover and find the information from within it? Same thing on the financials. At Summit, I showed you a couple of examples, right? We've already done like a AP automation, using our, one of the services from Microsoft, to be able to take a picture of an invoice and then automatically read what's in the invoice, including the breakdown of items in the invoice, or expense receipt, right? Construction workers out there, they need to go buy something, from a Home Depot or Lowe's, and they go in, they got the receipt. And usually it's such a manual, time consuming process. Instead, they can just take a picture of the receipt, and then boom, it looks at what's in the receipt and automatically post them into the expense claim system, in this case Acumatica. Not only that, based on prior classification, the system would know, oh, by the way, that's just purchase for the job site, so put them in a specific account code. If it happened to be a meeting with the owner and you're buying coffee, it can tag them as a meals, for example. So that's the type of stuff that saves a lot of time. And one of the other things that I showed and I talked about is the anomaly detection, right? The ability to catch some human errors, or fraudulent transactions. If you're going in and putting a particular invoice against a project, on a similar project, you never add an invoice. Maybe it's a amount of I don't know. Lumber that you're buying, right? Especially given how short supply it is in, and the cost, you got to be very careful. And there could be a mistake where you put in that the about X amount of 2x4s, and the cost is $10,000. You might have been used to seeing it at $3,000, and the system might detect it as an anomaly, but it could be a real data because the cost has gone through the roof off late. But that's the type of stuff you can catch early on. It's going to save a lot of time for the accounting team to validate and verify as they're closing the books for the month, or the quarter, or the year. So that's where I see machine learning and AI coming into play. A lot of interactions with mobile, right? I mean, you guys are big on that with WorkMax. How do we enable same type of interaction using mobile? People able to talk to the phone and have that converted to text and put that in. Like punch list is a good example. We showed an example demo, and I think it's starting to pick up in construction. This whole VR, AR, particularly augmented reality. You're walking through a job site with an AR goggle, and you're able to capture issues on a job site, and then just give instructions to it. So you've got hands free to work on the job site while you're capturing. Same thing in a service tech scenario. You're a technician inspecting a job site. You need your hands free to be able to work on stuff. So that's the type of stuff that's starting to pick up, and then I think there'll be more coming in the as we make advances in kind of simplifying the experience, if you will.
Yeah. So if you were to build a tech stack from scratch, what would you start with, and maybe what order would your priority be for a company?
You're talking about the construction company. Well, I mean, the obviously, I'm a little biased here, so I'll say, look at the right ERP system, because ERP becomes kind of your system of record, and not coming across as like I'm trying to sell Acumatica here. The key is obviously build a system that's open, from an architecture standpoint, that enables you to connect with other systems, because we don't believe in, be all end all one system that's all you need. It's not going to be the case. There's so much innovation happening there. There's best of breed software out there, like for the work your team and our team did, Mike, for instance. You've got a time capture system that's very popular. A lot of people are using it. How do you bring that data into Acumatica? With other legacy ERP systems, it's like a file based import export, right? It's like you're just packaging that up, throwing it over the fence, hoping everything worked, and something fails, you have to fix. Oh, I missed a comma. You fix a comma and throw it over the fence again and wait for it. Oh, 90s called and they want their technology back. In this day and age, it can't just be operating like that. You got to be a lot more real time. And that's where I think, finding a system that's got the, open architecture with open API support, that works well on a browser where most of the, team, especially in the office, are working, but also works well in a tablet and mobile phone, so folks can go and experience that. At Summit, I showed an example of what you can do with an Apple Watch. It's an illustration to inspire people think about how we can bring some of those capabilities into the watch, for example. But that's the type of stuff we got to collectively continue to invest in, and that's what the customers need to be thinking about. What's the right, first of all, identify the problem area, pick a strong system like an ERP system that can connect with the multiple different applications, and then look at the areas where you need the solution right away. But then keep in mind, the investment that you're making in technology, it's not just investment for the today, it's for the future. So take a bet on something that you believe, not just what the product does today, but do you believe in the vision and the value that the company offers? Is that something you're subscribing to as a customer? Then take a bet on that type of relationship as a vendor, and that's going to set you up for the next 8-10 years. One important thing I'll share, Mike, is that one of the things we have seen in the last 18 months, and some of it is obviously driven by the pandemic. People didn't have a choice, they have to make a quick action, and I remember customers, some of them calling me and say, oh, we're ready to move to cloud ERP and we want to go live tomorrow. We were like, okay, wait, slow down here. There's a method to this madness, right? We understand and appreciate the intent, but you want to make sure you're doing it the right way as well, right? Sometimes you got to go slow a little bit to be able to go fast, as they say. But a lot of the teams have learned how to be very nimble and agile and be scrappy, if you will, right? And I remember somebody saying that you've seen 12 years worth of transformation in 12 months, right? I mean, we've all seen that as a consumer, like the hotel, restaurants, and schools, and everybody is online and so on and so forth. And the similar things that happen in the construction industry and many industries out there. And my request is, let's not forget that. Let's not forget that new skill that we have learned, which is able to assess a fit for a particular technology or a solution like cloud ERP or a time capture system or a project management solution, able to make the decision and get that system in place in a rapid time, right? And that's a skill that I think a lot of the companies have gained, and I strongly hope that teams continue to use that. It's kind of like the running the 2-minute drill, right? There's certain things you do differently, and there's obviously some a pattern and a method to that type of execution, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen, and I think that'll continue to be the case going forward.
Yeah, I think to summarize what you just shared, I think one of the big things is that there's an urgency today. I mean, COVID obviously changed that urgency level very rapidly. Nobody could see that coming the way that it came and the challenges that it brought. But I have seen so many companies adapt quickly and pivot and make adjustments because they had to. There really was no choice. And so now we're used to utilizing Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams and other tools. We're used to seeing people remotely and working remotely, and so I think there's an opportunity here to, rather than move back into the slow lane, to keep our businesses in the fast lane and continue to innovate and adopt these technologies that so many other industries are already embracing and have been profitable from for decades.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, some of the industry had an advantage, right? Financial services and retail have been in the forefront of technology even before. But someone like construction, maybe agriculture, they're just there's a little bit of catching up happening right now, right? And that's the other piece too, right? This whole notion of digital transformation. There's a lot of hype about it, but then if you just peel the onion, look at it at the what it means. I mean, it's like, how do you take an organization that's disconnected, that's operating with silos, a lot of manual broken process? How do you transition into a state where systems are connected, operations are very efficient, and the players, key is the people and the process. The people understand what they're doing, right, and have tools that actually help them be successful and be more productive. And it's never a said and done, oh yeah, I just did it, I'm done, I'll come back in 15 years and review this again. No, this is a journey, right? You're constantly having to look into it and invest, and that's why it's important to invest in a platform like I talked about earlier. What the decision you're making now is a decision that you want to be with for decades to come, right? And how can you future proof that, right, if that's the term to use, right? It's like understanding your challenges today and what solution best solves the challenges today, but then is it going to be helpful and get me prepared for what the challenges will be tomorrow. So some of that is the part of the dialogue you need to have with whatever software that you're looking into getting on.
Yeah, I was reading a study recently, and it said that 98% of companies are expecting to increase their productivity utilizing technology like IoT. So,
Absolutely. No, I totally believe that, right? Because especially in with the transformation that we've seen happen, I totally see that happening.
so my last question is this: what are the right questions that contractors should be asking to make sure that they're investing in the right technology to maximize that ROI?
Yeah, I think it starts with what they're trying to address, right? Like I said, depending on where you are as an organization, understanding the key problems that you're trying to solve, and then making sure that the product that you're getting addresses the problems that you're trying to solve for, if you will. And that's where you start. And some of the points that I made already on this one is that not just stopping with that, but looking at, hey, where do you see your organization going in the next, call it 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, right? And an understanding of this new system that you're going to be putting in place, whether that system has got the vision, or the vendor that's behind that system has got the vision and the investment from a ongoing technology growth standpoint to take it to the next level. If you don't get that feeling, then I would definitely pause and do the due diligence even further, because the things are changing so rapidly. I mean, I shared this excitement at the Acumatica Summit. What a phenomenal time to be alive, with so much technology innovation happening. I mean, what you thought was like cutting edge 2 years ago is now outdated, right? And that's the rapid pace that's going on. And I think for our customers, that's why it's important that they make the selection keeping in mind what the future is at stake, right? Understanding and questioning a lot of the assumptions, whether it's like, hey, my interaction with the system is going to be limited to X, Y, and Z. Well, is that going to be the case going forward? Imagine yourself in 2 years. And again, going back to the comment I made earlier, technology, when we talk about in the case of software, I mean, it's not a necessary evil. An ERP system or a time capture system, should not come in the way of how you run your business. If not anything, at a minimum, it should make you move faster. And then, of course, add a lot of value on top of it. That's where a lot of this automation we talked about, things like machine learning and AI, sensor based data, and bringing it into the system, and analyzing it, separating the signal from the noise. All that's the responsibility of the solution provider, that these construction companies need to challenge and say, show us where the value is today, but show us where the value is going to be tomorrow and in the near future.
That's great, great advice. So, a couple of personal questions before we wrap up, if that's okay. So, what is a Joy's superpower? When you put your cape on in the morning before you go to work, what is your main go to?
Wow, that's a a phenomenal question. I mean, again, I think the sport, what we are doing, with my day to day job at Acumatica, this is a team sport, right? This is not something that you just put the cape on and go like, yep, I'm going to solve every problem. At the end of the day, it's about like, kind of collectively as a team, can we produce more than what we could have otherwise, right? And some of it is, I talk about this, go big or go home, right? This is the time where we need to start evaluating and challenging the status quo, challenging the assumptions. and pushing on, like, what makes sense for our customers, and getting the team to buy into that shared vision and moving forward. That's what I would say. In some cases, if I may borrow, Greg Popovich, famous quote is like getting out of the way sometimes, right, to make sure that the right things get done. That's important as well. And to me, I mean, again, personally, me, we've spent a lot of time together. I get pretty excited about the space that we're operating in, and the technology as a whole. And having that balance is important. It's not just technology for the sake of technology. Of course, I commit that's in all the time. The shiny blue object, oh, that looks so cool, let's just go play with it. Of course, you want to do that. That kind of keeps you excited and maybe young at heart, I guess. But in terms of the application itself, it's like understanding, hey, what does the technology mean to the business problem we're trying to solve, right? And can we make the business process run that much better, or eliminate some of the mundane tasks, right? If you don't need to do certain things the way you've done it, which consumes 4 hours, we can do it in 4 seconds. Be my guest, let's put it in place. And we've done many of that as we were looking at the workflow in the context of Acumatica construction and other modules as well.
That's great. So, as a final thought, what would you have the listeners have as a takeaway if there was one thing you could, put an accent on here at the end?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, again, none of this decision is like, one time you make it and you move on. This is an ongoing journey. I mean, you see, construction companies are going through this transformation just within the construction industry, as a whole, in terms of the tools that they use, in terms of the materials that they're dealing with. Modular construction is now starting to pick up. There's so much change happening there. That is so true when it comes to technology as well, right? Where it's not a decision you make in one point in time and you just forget about it. So constant investment is important. That's why you want to work with vendors that you trust. The software solution providers to be a trusted advisor and trusted partner for you as an organization. If you don't have that comfort, then if there's a small amount of doubt in your mind, trust me, listen to your gut, right? There's probably something that you need to investigate further. But that's the important thing, right? Like I said, and we talked about this even before. Digital transformation, it's a journey, it's not a destination. So there's constant evolution that needs to happen. And for that, the listeners here that are looking into making some technology decisions, keep an eye on that, right? Make a decision that feels right for you today, but make it with the confidence that it's going to be the right decision for you in the near future.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing that, Ajoy. And thank you so much for being a guest today.
No, it's been my pleasure. Great discussion, some good questions. Hopefully, this is valuable, and look forward to listening to this and other future podcast.
Confident it will be, and we'll have to have you on in the future and talk about some other things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you to the guests for joining us on the Mobile Workforce Podcast today. If you enjoyed the conversation that Ajoy and I had, we invite you to please give us a 5-star rating and review. And more importantly, share this episode with your friends and colleagues. After all, our goal here is not only to help you improve your business, but your life.